Okay, so we're in Genesis 46 tonight. And start with verse 1. And Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. So for the first time, Jacob left that land going to the land of Haran. He had come to Bethel. Remember back then, he wasn't looking for God, and God was not leading him. And it took him a long time to learn the proper way to go through life. So many Christians today, they go through the week and leave God pretty much out of their program, don't they? Seems to be that way. Sometimes we're all guilty of that, I guess, from time to time. They make their own decisions and do what they want to do. Then Sunday comes and they come to church. They may teach Sunday school, sing in the choir, play an instrument, but then at the end of the night, or end of the day, usually it's the end of the day, they don't come back on Sunday night, but usually at the end of the day, they walk out of here and tell God goodbye on Sunday night and Sunday mornings. But that's not how we should do it. And notice he says there in this verse here that he offered sacrifices. So the route to Egypt for Jacob went via Beersheba, and that was a notable site about 25 miles southwest of Hebron, and a favorite worship place for both Abraham and Isaac. They both erected altars there. Abraham did it in chapter 21, verse 33, and Isaac did it in 26:25. So Jacob here stops to offer sacrifices unto the God of his father Isaac. Verse 2 says, And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. So God spake in the visions. Jacob's anxiety about his departure to Egypt was allayed by the Lord's approval and confirmation of his descendants returning as a nation. Remember, God had previously appeared and spoken to Jacob. We see that in chapter 28, chapter 32, chapter 35. So he's akin to hearing that voice. And in verse 3 it says, And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. So fear not to go down into Egypt. Abraham, remember, think back with us now several weeks or a couple of months now. Abraham had lied about his wife in Egypt. Remember that back in chapter 12. And that was some serious consequences. And then Isaac had been forbidden even to go there. In chapter 26, verse 2, God forbade Isaac to even go there. And that must have, so all of that in his mind, of Jacob's mind, must have caused some anxiety. So God assures him right here that he's leading him. He says, Fear not, go to Egypt. And remember, it says, For I will make of thee a great nation. Exodus 1:7 says, And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with him. So God fulfilled his promise. That was just an example of why he gave him that fear not. And Jacob's life can be divided into 3 geographical locations: the land of Haran, the land of Canaan, and the land of Egypt. These 3 denote spiritual levels in Jacob's life. Jacob left the land years ago with just a staff. When he got to Haran, he was God's man living in the flesh. Remember, he left Haran running. In Canaan, Jacob had his wrestling match, but he is God's man who is fighting in his own strength. Now he is going to Egypt, and now he is not walking in his own strength, and he's not running anymore. Now he's walking by faith. We'll see that here. Verse 4, And I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. In other words, he's going to close your eyes when you die. That's what that interpreted means. So it's a promise of dying peacefully in the presence of his beloved son, as we'll see later in chapter 49, verse 33. And God promises Jacob that he's going to die in Egypt. This was in contrast to the troubled end Jacob had predicted for himself back in chapter 35, when he thought he was going to go to his grave early, Genesis chapter 37, 35. And then notice it says in this verse, bring thee up again. That refers to the nation of Israel not to Jacob. So he's going to bring that nation up again. He's going to make it a great nation. Verse 5, and Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father and the little ones and their wives and the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They took their cattle, in verse 6, and they took their cattle or livestock and their goods and all that they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all of his seed, in other words, all of his descendants with him. So they came into Egypt. This is about 1875 BC, before Christ. They remained there 430 years. We see that in Exodus chapter 12, verse 40, that tells us that they were there for 430 years. And that's until the Exodus in 1445 BC. So that gives you some historical context of how long they were there and that kind of thing. Verse 7, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed or descendants brought he with him into Egypt. He had to take everyone and all the livestock in order to survive the famine. I mean, this was a survival thing. This wasn't necessarily just a happenstance. And then we're going to Jacob's family here, and we see that in verse 8, and these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. Now, the children of Israel, meaning the descendants of Israel. And this was the first time the author of Genesis, that being Moses, referred to the family as a whole in this way. Although in Israel, the words in Israel have been used by the sons of Jacob before, back in chapter 34, verse 7. Now we start getting into some names here. This is always fun. Verse 9, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok and Phalu and Hezron and Carmi, and the sons of Simeon, Jamil, Jemin, Ohad, and Jachin, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Let me just say this. These names mean nothing to us. But remember, they mean something to somebody. Just like our names don't mean nothing to a lot of people. I always like to interject that when we're running through names and things in the Bible, genealogy. More importantly, these names mean something to God. These names, they're in the Bible for a reason. Verse 12, and the sons of Judah, and Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. And the sons of Issachar, Tolu, Phuvah, and Job, and Shimron. This isn't Job from the Bible, by the way. It's a different Job, from not the Job we always talk about. And the sons of Zebulun, Sered, and Elon, and Jahil. These are the sons of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob in Paddan Aram, with his daughter Dinah. And the souls, meaning persons, of his sons and his daughters were 30 and 3. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion, and Haggai, and Shunai, and Ebzon, Eri, and Aradi, and Areli. And the sons of Asher, Jemna, and Ushua, Asua, and Beriah, and Sarah, their sister, and the sons Beriah, Heber, and Michael. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bare unto Jacob, even 16 souls. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin, and unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela and Becher and Ashbel, Jerah, Naaman, Ehi, and Rosh, Mupin, and Hupin, and Ard. I'm probably butchering these names terribly, but these are the sons of Rachel, which bare to Jacob. The souls were 14, and the sons were Dan and Husham. And the sons of Naphtali, Jazil, and Guni, and Jezer, and Shillem. These are the sons of Bilhah, which Laban gave unto Rachel his daughter, and she bare these unto Jacob. All the souls were 7. All the souls that came with Jacob into Egypt, which came from out of his loins, besides Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls or persons were 60. That means 60 persons. And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls, and all the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70. 70 is 70. So in verses 8 through 27 that we just went through, the genealogical register separately listing and totaling the sons per wife and handmaid. That's what it's giving you, breaks down that. And it's enveloped by a notification that it records the sons or persons of Jacob who went into Egypt back in verse 8 and 27, it talks about that. Ancient Near Eastern genealogies could include historical notes, as is true here, namely the death of Onan from verse 12, and that Laman gave the handmaids to his daughters in verses 18 and 25. Probably doesn't mean much to you, but 70. Well, I'm not even going to go into that. There's ways you can deduct numbers and bring it from 60 to 77 and 70. There's a whole lot of movement there, but just know that it even references this in the New Testament. Acts 7:14 says, "Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him and all his kindred, 15 souls." That means 75. Just know that 5 more people were born in the land. Just know that. I can give you a breakdown of detail if you have any questions. Verse 28, "And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen." So he sent Judah before him unto Joseph. Once again, Judah was the leader going ahead of Jacob's representative, not Reuben. Remember that he was not the eldest, but he was taking the lead. And Goshen, we see that Goshen is listed also in Genesis 45 from last week, or the last time we met. Thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt not be near thee, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. Land of Goshen, good land. And Joseph made ready his chariot, verse 29, and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen, and presented himself unto him, and he fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. This is real, true emotion. This isn't anything made up. This is, imagine the joy of Jacob to know that his son is alive. He sees him. He thought he had been dead for years. Great revival here. "And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive." Israel, calls him Israel, said unto Joseph, Jacob is now the child of God who lives by faith. Therefore he is called by his name here, Israel. In verse 31, "And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and show," in other words, I will go tell Pharaoh, "and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade, their occupation, hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds, all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you, and shall say, What is your occupation? That ye shall say, Thy servant's trade hath been about cattle," or as our trade is with cattle, "from our youth even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination," or is loathsome, "unto the Egyptians." So in verses 31 to 34, Joseph's instructions about his preparatory interview with Pharaoh were designed to secure his relative's place somewhat separate. He wants them to be separated from the mainstream Egyptian society. The social stigma regarding Hebrews in that day, and I would refer you back to chapter 43, verse 32, talks about you don't eat bread with the Egyptians, or this was for the Egyptians. They weren't to eat bread with the Hebrews because they were abomination to the to the Egyptians. A lot of racism and stuff going on in that day. So the social stigma regarding the Hebrews, and then there were shepherds also. All that played a crucial role in protecting Israel from intermingling and losing their identity in Egypt. This kept them separated, which is what we should want to do today, is come out and be ye separate from the world and that kind of thing. Talking about a shepherd, the Word of God has a lot to say about shepherds. Jesus was the good shepherd, right? Jesus was a good shepherd who gave his life for the sheep. He's the great shepherd of his sheep who watches over them today. And he's the chief shepherd who is yet to appear, but we look for him at any time. And the abomination here, being loathsome unto the Egyptians, just remember, Jesus is an abomination to the world, right? He's not received today. He wasn't received by his own. Excuse me. And he is an abomination to the world today. They hate him. His name strikes turmoil and strife and will get you kicked out of places. You can say God. I just don't want you to say Jesus or worship Jesus. So that's where we leave off tonight.